people of YouTube! I'm Schoko, and today we're watching Laws That Exist Because of One Terrible Incident by Vtuber. Here we go.
Zach's law means that trolling anybody
Epilepsy Society.
deliberately with the intention of causing them seizures is now a criminal offense.
The crime was so shocking,
Oh,
a
damn.
law was created in Rachel Hoffman's name.
Innocent people were poisoned to death for no reason.
Some laws were created in moments of panic. Something went wrong and people scrambled to make a law to prevent it from ever happening again. Today we're doing a deep dive into laws that only exist because of one incident. We'll start with the lighter stories and save the worst for last. My goal is still the same, guys, to increase the number of videos I put out without sacrificing quality. To do that, we gotta keep growing. So it would mean the world if you subscribe, and I promise to do my very best that I can for you. I'm Vtuber and you are awesome. Rachel's Law. Rachel's Law exists because a young woman trusted the police, and that trust cost her her life. The law is named after a 23-year-old Rachel Hoffman. In 2008, Rachel graduated from Florida State University. She was young and full of dreams. She wanted to attend culinary school and become a chef. Her mother later described her like this.
Oh, so she was going into culinary school. Or was it culinary school?
She was beautiful, she was talented, she loved music.
But Rachel had a secret. She occasionally used substances.
Oh,
Rachel
no. Oh, no. See, the thing is, if you use and you abuse, you're gonna definitely lose. That's the unfortunate part. So, definitely avoid it, definitely. Don't do drugs.
Was a pothead, and Rachel sold marijuana to her friends out of her home.
That same year, she
Wait.
graduated.
So it's just pot? Really? That's it? What? When they say substances, I thought like pills, freaking all this type of stuff. No, really? What's going on here?
Rachel's neighbors smelled pot coming from her apartment. They called the police. Officers
Wow.
arrived and searched the home. Inside, they found pot.
And we found roughly a quarter pound of marijuana. It was present during a search warrant.
Quarter
If you were to hold
pound.
that, how much would that be?
A bag.
Rachel was
Oh, my.
arrested. She was facing a possible prison sentence. That meant her dream of becoming a chef was a risk. She was desperate for a way out. That's when the police made her a dangerous offer. Rachel was given two choices. She could fight the charges in court and risk prison, or she could work for the police as an informant. Afraid of losing
Okay, that doesn't seem so bad. At least you wouldn't get prison time and stuff. But, oof, then you're a narc. Then you're like literally the people that, you know, bring the other people
everything,
down.
Rachel agreed to go undercover. In May 2008, detectives gave her an
I don't think you should put a citizen undercover. I feel like it just doesn't work. You should have someone that actually knows what they're doing, rather than someone who doesn't and then brings himself into danger. 2008, going undercover.
assignment. Police were investigating two suspected drug dealers, but they didn't have enough evidence to arrest them. That's where Rachel came in. They asked her to pose as a buyer. She would meet the suspects in a park and purchase substances from them. Rachel was nervous, but detectives assured her that she wouldn't be alone. They promised that 18 officers would be nearby watching the park. Once the deal
Nah, I don't trust. When they say, oh yeah, you won't be alone, I want to see proof. Where are you all going to be stationed at? Where is everybody pinpointed? I need to know who I can call. I need to know what I can do to let you guys know. Feels illegal. They can bribe them with going undercover. Yeah.
deal was done,
Just so
police
you
would
don't get
move
prison
in and
time.
make arrests. And Rachel would go home, make dinner for her friends, or go to a movie. The detectives gave Rachel $13,000 and put a
No, that's wild. $13,000 to put your life at risk. What happens when they're released a few years later? Exactly. They're going to be like, hey, I remember you. You snitched on me last time.
listening device in her purse. She was now part of an undercover operation.
Somehow, Rachel Hoffman ended up on the front lines of the biggest drug bust in the history of Tallahassee's
Biggest?
police department.
On the day of the meeting, Rachel met the suspects at the park, but they had a different plan. The suspects told her to follow them to a new location. Police tried to warn Rachel not to go, but technical issues prevented her from actually receiving that message. She got into her car and drove off. Police tried to follow, but they lost sight of her. That was the last time she was seen alive. Rachel and the two suspects arrived at the new location, but they never planned to sell her anything. Their real goal was to steal her money. Then one of them noticed the listening device. The situation turned deadly. They realized Rachel was working with the police. Before she could escape, the suspects ended her. 2 days later, police...
Bruh, this is why she's not a trained professional. She's a civilian. And no, this is pissing me off. Surely they would have hidden her identity, but why is she on the news? Exactly. It's like a gone wrong thing.
Investigators from the Tallahassee Police Department had Mr. Green and Mr. Bradshaw transported back to Tallahassee. They led us to Ms. Hoffman's body. She is deceased.
Both men were sentenced to life in prison. Rachel's tragedy caused outrage nationwide. Many people questioned how a young, inexperienced woman was sent into such a dangerous situation.
Exactly.
The answer was obvious. At the time, there were almost no laws protecting police informants. That needed to change.
The crime was so shocking, a law was created in Rachel Hoffman's name.
In 2009, Florida lawmakers passed Rachel's Law. The law required...
No, that makes sense for the whole Rachel's Law thing. Rachel's Law. In the wake of such a harrowing tragedy, Rachel's parents did what many would do: fight for reform. Rachel's Law codified Section 914.28 of Florida statutes, is the nation's first law to help protect confidential informants, and does the following: requires police informants to be informed that their works as an informant cannot guarantee a reduction in any pending criminal charges, immunity, or a reduced sentence, or placement on probation. Damn! So they will be able to do the type of under the table stuff. Hi Ragnar, how you doing? Welcome. Yeah, I'm feeling better. Ensures that confidential informants are granted the right to consult with an attorney upon request before agreeing to work as an undercover confidential informant. However, it does not create a right to publicly funded legal counsel. Requires that all personnel who are involved in the use or recruitment of confidential informants are trained in the law enforcement agency's policies and procedures, and the agency must keep a record of such training. Requires law enforcement agencies to develop policies for recruitment, control, and use of confidential informants, which must include restrictions of off-duty association. Requires supervisory approval before a juvenile can be recruited as a confidential informant. Yeah, I don't even think... But this is in Florida.
Does not guarantee reduced charges. It also sets strict limits on how informants can be used. And before anyone agrees to help the police, they must speak with a lawyer. The law can't undo what happened to Rachel, but it helped thousands of informants understand the risks before saying yes. This next law was created because of ordinary people taking Tylenol. The Tylenol bill.
The Tylenol
bill! In September
bill.
1982, Chicago went into panic mode. 7 people...
So this was in Chicago. Mary Killerman, Adam Janus, Stanley Janus, Teresa Janus, Paula Prince, Mary Reiner, and Miriam McFarland. True Crime Rewind: serial killer poisons Tylenol 43 years ago. Damn!
People passed away after taking
Poisoning
ordinary pain
Tylenol.
medication, but this wasn't bad luck or a mistake. Someone did it on purpose. By the time the truth came out, officials realized a new law was the only way to stop this from happening again. In the early 1980s, Tylenol was the most popular pain reliever in America, but it had a dangerous flaw
isn't it
no one
still
noticed.
to the same?
At the time, Tylenol bottles had no safety seals. There was no foil and no plastic wrap around the bottle. That meant anyone could open a bottle, swap out the pills, and close it again. And no one would ever know. For years, that risk went unnoticed. Until one day in September
They forgot Heel
1982,
Janus.
that morning, a girl named Mary woke up with a sore throat.
12-year-old Mary Kellerman was a student at June Adams Junior High in Schaumburg, and according to school officials, she had a cold.
To help her feel better, her parents gave her a Tylenol capsule. A few hours later, Mary collapsed. She didn't survive. At first, no one knew why she passed away. It felt so random, but it was not an isolated case. Later that day in Chicago, Adam Janus developed the headache. He
There's
took
Adam
Tylenol.
Janus.
Moments later, he passed away too. Then things became even worse. When Adam's family heard the news, they gathered at his home to grieve. His brother Stanley was there, along with Stanley's wife, Teresa. While they were mourning, both of them started to feel sick. Since they were at Adam's house, they found his bottle of Tylenol.
His brother and sister-in-law were so upset by his death that they went back to the house and took some Tylenol from the same bottle.
A few hours later, Stanley and Teresa were rushed to the hospital. They both passed away, too. Over the next few days, 3 more people across Chicago took Tylenol. They all passed away almost immediately. In total, 7 people passed away within a 3-day period, all under mysterious circumstances. Police launched an investigation. They quickly noticed one thing all the cases had in common. Every victim took Tylenol right before they passed. Local news picked up the story.
3 people are dead, and another is in critical condition tonight.
One of the victims took the pills he bought to his home.
Panic spread fast. Hospitals were flooded with calls.
The phone has been ringing off the hook at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center in Chicago. It's the regional poison control center for the entire Chicago area.
Anyone who took Tylenol feared they might be next. Luckily, investigators were able to recover the victims' bottles. They tested the capsules. The results were clear. Every capsule in those bottles contained potassium cyanide. The poison, consuming a small amount can be fatal, but those pills contained nearly 3 times the amount needed to end someone. The police immediately warned the public.
Police cruised up and down residential streets, warning all the citizens about the Tylenol danger.
Police struggled to find a pattern. The contaminated pills came from different factories and were sold in different pharmacies around the Chicago area. After investigating, the police reached a conclusion. Someone likely opened random Tylenol bottles in local stores. When no one was looking, they removed the real capsules and replaced them with the poisoned ones, then put the bottles back on the shelves. And it was easy because the bottles didn't have safety seals.
Oh, they had cyanide! There it is! I put cyanide in there.
We don't know the extent of the contamination, so I think at this time it would be wise not to take extra strength Tylenol at all.
Police alerted Johnson & Johnson, the company behind Tylenol. The company pulled every bottle from shelves nationwide. In total, 31 million bottles were recalled, but the real problem remained. In general, medicine bottles were still easy to open, and whoever was responsible
Is that why they
could
put
strike.
the foils on
So
them?
manufacturers made a major change. They redesigned the Tylenol bottles with 3 layers of protection. First, a foil seal over the opening. Second, a tightly sealed cap. Third, a plastic wrap around the bottle's neck. If any seal was broken, consumers would know immediately. This became known as tamper-proof packaging. Other companies followed suit. Soon, every medicine bottle in America had safety seals. But packaging wasn't the only issue. At the time, product tampering was only a state crime. There was no strong federal punishment.
Well, hang on, because some products still don't have protection things over them. And there's some people that are nasty and lick the top or eat some of it and awful, and then they just put it back. I hate that.
And that needed to change. In 1983, Congress passed what became known as the Tylenol Bill.
Reminds me of needles and strawberries. Yeah.
Anyone caught could face anywhere from 10 years in prison to life behind bars. The government hoped this would discourage people from repeating that crime, but it didn't. 3 years later, in 1986, a woman named Stella Nickel wanted to end her husband, so she added deadly pills to his medicine bottle. Her husband passed away, but the police later discovered what she did. Stella Nickel became the first person ever convicted under the new law. She was sentenced to 90 years in prison for product tampering. So every time
90 years? That's her whole life at that point. Guess shouldn't have done that.
you see a safety seal on medicine, remember this law. It protects millions of people from getting hurt. This next story is about a tragedy that went down in history. The Station nightclub fire. Today, every nightclub in America has sprinklers, but in the early 2000s, many clubs didn't. Back then, sprinklers were not even required by law.
Really?
One night, more than 400
in a
people
place with a crowd of people?
Without sprinklers.
Nightclub
What
without
followed was
no.
so tragic, it changed fire safety laws forever.
Yeah,
in 2003, the Station nightclub in Rhode Island was very popular. It was owned by two brothers. Like many club owners, they wanted to keep noise from leaking outside, so they installed foam padding on the walls to absorb.
I think I've heard about this one. It's because of all the foam padding, and I think it was a sprinkler thing, like a light up alcohol bottle champagne with the sprinklers and the fireworks kind of thing that like started burning it, and then it burned really fast because it was foam, and nobody really noticed it until it's too late kind of thing. Wasn't that it? Or is that like a more recent one? Because I don't know, there was one more recent with the sprinkler issue, but instead burned the top of like a building that was made out of like straw, dry straw or something.
Sound. That solved the noise problem, but it also created a much bigger one. The foam lining the walls was highly flammable.
Yep.
But it was also made of polyurethane, a highly flammable, petroleum-based material. It was installed all around the stage and the dance floor.
But the club owners didn't see it as a serious risk. Over time, the club grew even more popular, and in
Oh, it was pyrotechnics and a malfunction burned. Oh, and then it burned down. Hopefully people got away.
2003, a rock band called Great White booked a show there, but one critical detail was overlooked. Great White was known for putting on a pyrotechnic display during their performances. Pyrotechnics are small fireworks usually used to excite crowds, but fireworks meant sparks. Using pyrotechnics inside a foam-lined nightclub was extremely dangerous. On the night of the show, the band's tour manager set up the fireworks. They were placed directly behind the stage. By 11 p.m., the band was performing. About 462 people were inside the club. That alone was a serious problem because the legal capacity was only 404.
They went beyond the legal capacity too. I mean, honestly, I don't know how people can count or keep track of how many of the legal capacity to make it floor.
The tour manager lit the fireworks. Sparks shot into the air. The crowd cheered. They had no idea what had just started. The sparks instantly ignited the foam on the wall behind the stage. Flames spread within seconds. At first, some people thought it was part of the show, and smoke began filling the room. That's when panic set in. Everyone rushed toward the front door. The building actually had 4 exits, but most people didn't know that. They got into the club through the front door, so they all tried to leave the same way. Many never made it out. By the time firefighters arrived, it was too late. Hundreds were injured. More than 100 lost
they didn't even know where the exit
authorities
was.
launched an investigation. They identified one major issue. The nightclub had no sprinkler system.
Between crowd crush, toxic gas, and burning, too many died. Unfortunate. Somebody lost lives.
Sprinklers would have put out the fire, or at least contained it long enough to give everyone time to exit safely. Authorities made sure it could never happen again. In the months that followed, new fire safety laws were created. First, nightclubs were required to install sprinklers. Flammable materials had to be removed from walls and ceilings. Emergency exits had to be clearly marked and well lit. Limits were placed on how many people could be inside at one time. Fireworks were banned in indoor venues unless strict safety rules.
Yeah, how the heck are you supposed to shoot fireworks on an inside building? That's literally impossible. That would burn down the building. Oh, you like this guy's video. How you doing, Vern Eater? Vern Beat. How you doing? Welcome.
Followed. Every one of these rules came from that tragedy. That night, 462 people went out to enjoy live music, but more than 100 never came home. Up next is the story of a woman who made a fatal mistake. Rowan's Law. Rowan's Law requires young people to get medical attention when they're not feeling well. At first, that sounds strange. Why would anyone need a law for that? The reason traces back to the disturbing case of 17-year-old Rowan Stringer. In 2013, Rowan Stringer was a high school student in Ontario, Canada. She was also the captain of her school's rugby team. Rowan's friends and family knew how much she loved the sport.
She really enjoyed it. She really, she was always coming home and talking about how many tackles she had. And
Rowan gave everything on the field, and that intensity would later become part of the danger. Rugby is a physical sport. Players constantly collide into each other and hit
no
the ground.
Protection either because it's rugby.
Serious injuries. One of the most dangerous is a concussion, which is a brain injury. Many players didn't understand how serious concussions were. In the spring of 2013, Rowan's team played several games within a week. During the first match, Rowan took 2 hard hits to the head. She felt dizzy afterward, but she didn't tell her coaches. She stayed in the game. Later that night, Rowan was still feeling off. She told her friends she thought she might have a concussion, but she never saw a doctor. Instead, she focused on getting ready for the next game. It was a decision she would not recover from. At the next match, things became much worse. Rowan was tackled repeatedly. Each time, she hit the ground hard. After one fall, she tried to stand. She couldn't. Coaches called for help. The game stopped immediately. Rowan was rushed to the hospital, but doctors realized this wasn't a typical concussion. They diagnosed Rowan with second impact syndrome. This happens when a second concussion occurs before the first one is healed, and that could be fatal. Doctors tried everything to save her. They couldn't.
Concussion impact syndrome.
But the tragedy revealed a much larger problem. Most young athletes didn't understand the risks and symptoms of concussions, and because of that, many injuries went unreported. Rowan's family refused to let her passing be meaningless.
I would never want to see this happen to another family ever again. So our goal is to really make sure that we prevent that.
They shared Rowan's story with lawmakers in Ontario, and in 2018, the authorities passed
You remember
Rowan's
this
law.
one?
So Ontario will become the first jurisdiction in all of Canada to pass concussion legislation.
The law made concussion education mandatory.
Thank
Coaches, athletes,
goodness.
and parents had to learn the risks. It also
They
set
should
strict
know.
rules. If a concussion is suspected, the athlete must leave the game. No
Yes.
exceptions. They can only return
No
after
exceptions.
a doctor clears them. Because of this law, winning is no longer the top priority. Health is. The laws we've talked about so far happened because of tragedy, but this next one was created because someone made a dumb mistake.
Oh no.
The exploding whale law.
Exploding whale
1970,
law?
Oregon
I'm
passed
so
a very
interested.
specific law. Do not use explosives.
Take Folius in a 1967 American direct cinema documentary film produced, written and directed by Frederick Wiseman and filmed by John Marshall. It deals with the patient inmates of Waterbridge State Hospital for Criminally Insane, a Massachusetts correctional institution in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. The title is taken from that of a talent show put on by the hospital staff. The tilts cut, I really want to say titty cut, is the Wampanoag name for the nearby Taunton River. Exploding whale law. In the 1970s, the state of Oregon passed one of the most specific laws in American history after a failed attempt to dispose of a beached whale with dynamite caused widespread chaos. To take away something simple and later immortalized in legal form, do not use explosives to blow up dead whales. Of course not. Why?
To
Hi,
blow
dead man.
up
How you
dead
doing?
whales.
Welcome.
Why in the world would this be a law? Because it already happened once. Someone blew up a whale, and the result was a disaster. Oregon has a long coastline. Miles of beaches stretch along the Pacific Ocean, but beaches come with one constant problem. Marine animals sometimes wash up lifeless on shore. Usually, they're small and easy to deal with. They can be tossed back into the sea, but sometimes something massive washes ashore, and when that happens, getting rid of it becomes a serious problem. That's what Oregon faced on November 9th, 19...
Yeah, so shouldn't they just completely evacuate the area so it can just do the gas release and then go kaboom? That's why whale bodies are so dangerous.
70. That morning, a massive dead whale washed up on the beach. It was about 45 feet long and weighed nearly 8 tons. It was far too large to move, so it stayed where it landed for days. As the whale decayed, the smell became overwhelming. People could
Why are
smell it
people
miles away.
around?
It had to be said, the Oregon State Highway Division not only had a whale of a problem on its hands, it had a stinking whale of a problem.
Local officials knew the whale had to go, but every option seemed impossible. Burying it would be too difficult. They would have to dig a massive hole on the beach. Towing it back out to sea wasn't realistic either, so Oregon authorities held a meeting to decide what to do. An engineer named George Thornton had an idea. It sounded like a good plan, but in reality, it was a terrible idea. George's plan was simple. Use dynamite to blow the whale into small pieces. Then birds would eat what was left and clean up the beach. George was an engineer and had experience using explosives on highway projects. He figured blowing up a whale wouldn't be too different from a
It would be
boulder.
very
That assumption
different.
didn't hold up. On the day of the blast, hundreds of spectators gathered on the beach. Everyone stood what they believed was a safe distance away. A reporter showed up as well. George and his team brought half a ton of dynamite.
Why did
That's
they
roughly
say this?
1,000
Why
pounds
did
of
they not even?
explosives.
They should have not
packed it
even been
around the whale's
around.
body. Then they pushed everyone back even further. The countdown began.
I would
Then
have pushed
the
people even
explosion.
further
People
out.
cheered. For a moment, it looked like the problem was solved. It wasn't. The explosion launched massive chunks of whale into the air.
That's
Then
what I
it
thought.
rained down across the beach. Debris landed as far as a quarter-mile away. One huge piece
Whale
crashed
of a
into
show.
a parked car and crushed the roof. When the
Damn.
smoke cleared, officials realized they now had a bigger mess. Massive pieces of whale were spread across the beach. They were too heavy for birds to carry, and somehow the smell was even worse than before. It took dozens of workers hours to collect whale pieces scattered across the beach. And officials did what they should have done done from the start. They buried the remains in the sand. The incident made national news, and Oregon became a punchline, but the embarrassment forced the state to confront a real issue. There were no clear rules for disposing of large marine animals. That ended after the whale. Oregon
Hopefully they
changed
figured
its
something
policies.
out.
Explosives were officially off the table.
Thank
When a
goodness.
large marine animal washes ashore, workers dig a deep pit, roll it in, and bury it. The
Oh,
state
that's
remembered
smart.
that lesson. In the next 10 years, 41 whales washed up on Oregon beaches. This time, no one reached for dynamite. History did not repeat itself. This next law was created because of absolutely horrible internet trolls.
Of course, we don't
Zach's
guess
Law.
that. Zach's Law.
Zach's Law exists because someone posted an image on Twitter.
Oh, no.
It doesn't sound dangerous, but there was something about that image that could have caused millions of medical emergencies. To understand why, we need to start with the boy the law was named after, Zach Eagling. Zach was an 8-year-old boy living in the United Kingdom, but his life was very
8-year-old
different
boy.
from most kids his age. He was born with 2 medical conditions, cerebral palsy and epilepsy. This made everyday tasks difficult. Even simple movements took effort, but Zach didn't let that define him. He wanted to help others facing the same challenges, so he decided to raise money for the Epilepsy Society,
I like
a charity
that.
that supports people with that condition. Zach planned a sponsored walk. He would walk 2.6 kilometers in laps around his backyard, and he was going to do it without his walking aid. Zach hoped it would inspire people to donate. It did. Unfortunately, it
Heck
also
yeah.
inspired evil people to act. The sponsored walk was scheduled for May 2020. Zach's
This is
mother
in
filmed him as
2020.
he slowly moved around the backyard. It was his longest distance he had ever walked on his own, and he succeeded.
Right up to the wall.
Zach's fundraising feat raised over £21,000.
The video of Zach's walk was shared on the Epilepsy Society's social media. It got a ton of views. Messages of support poured in. Then the internet showed its darker side. Internet trolls posted flashing images and GIFs on the Epilepsy Society's Twitter account.
That's so
They knew
messed
exactly
up.
what they were doing. Flashing images can trigger seizures in people with epilepsy. They tagged the posts with keywords that would be picked up by anyone who lived with the condition. Fortunately, Zach didn't have a medical emergency that day, but others weren't as lucky. Many reported seizures after seeing the posts. The Epilepsy Society reported the attack to the police, but officers said there was little they could do. There was no clear law against intentionally triggering medical emergencies online. That's when Zach's mother realized something had to change. Zach's family and the Epilepsy Society launched a campaign to protect people with the condition from online harm. They took their case to lawmakers in the UK, and in 2023, Zach's Law was passed in the UK.
Zach's law means
Okay,
that
that's
trolling
sweet.
anybody deliberately
I know, it's
with the
like
intention
so
of causing them
upsetting.
seizures is now a
Like,
criminal
why do
offence.
people have to be such assholes about it? There was no need. Let them do their event. Like, this is so saddening. It's like, what do you do better in your life? You have something else to do. Don't be a freaking shithead online and like cause medical harm to people.
The law also
People have
places
no remorse.
responsibility on social
My brave son, Zach, 11 stood up to dangerous trolls and changed the law. We won, thank you.
media
Oh.
platforms.
Touch
They must
grass,
remove
exactly.
dangerous flashing content before anyone gets hurt. If they don't, they can face heavy fines. Zach's walk was meant to raise money for charity. Instead, it changed the law. Now, people with epilepsy have stronger protection online.
You make me proud every single day. You drive me
Exactly,
crazy.
their lives are hard enough.
Yeah. But I think we are the best team ever.
This next chapter is the reason why we have Amber Alerts.
Oh
Amber Alert
no, the Amber Alert
The
system.
Amber Alert system exists because of an incident that happened in Arlington, Texas, and it involved a little girl named Amber.
This one I
Hackerman.
heard about.
One Saturday in January 1996, Amber was riding her bike near her home. A neighbor saw her riding in circles across the parking lot. Moments later, everything went wrong. A black pickup truck pulled up beside her. A man jumped out and grabbed Amber. Then he sped away. The entire incident lasted only seconds. The neighbor called the police immediately. He gave a description of the suspect in his vehicle, but couldn't recall much else.
And he run up behind her and grabbed her right under her arms and picked her up. And he turned around and come right back to here where his truck was, where the door was open, and put her in the truck.
Police launched a manhunt.
No, it's just so sad that they have to put that in just because someone was horrible and decided to just kidnap a child.
Right away, but the truck was already gone. The next day, the entire
And it's hard
community
to
joined the
remember
search.
and
Search
recollect
teams
stuff
combed
as like
through
a
Arlington.
one-time
Flyers were
situation that
posted
happened
everywhere,
in
but
front
there
of
was
you.
no sign of her. 4 days later, a man made a terrible discovery.
Apparently he was walking our dog and he had looked over the fence and had saw something white. Looked again and noticed that it was a body.
Amber didn't survive. The community was devastated. As the shock settled, people began asking a painful question. What more could have been done to save her? That question led to a powerful idea. On the day Amber was taken, most people nearby had no idea it happened. Life continued as normal. If people knew what to look for, someone might have spotted the truck. Someone might have called it in. Local TV and radio stations already had systems to warn people about severe weather. So why couldn't they use the same system to warn people about kidnapped children? The Texas woman shared this idea with law enforcement and local broadcasters. They quickly realized she was right. Police and broadcasters collaborated to develop a public alert system for missing children. They called it the Amber Plan.
Today we're unveiling the Amber Plan.
Amber stands for America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response.
Oh wow,
it was
that's
also
a really
named in
smart
honor
name.
of Amber Hagerman.
Yeah,
when
I like
an
that.
alert is activated, it interrupts television
like
and
what
radio
happened.
broadcasts. It
Because
appears
of-
on highway signs. It even pops up on phones. The goal is to get the public involved as fast as possible. After launching in Texas, the system expanded nationwide. And since 1996, the Amber Alert system has helped recover more than 1,200 children.
Let's
Sadly,
go!
the man who took Amber Hagerman has never been caught.
Nah.
This next chapter is about a building that people entered but couldn't escape. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory.
Okay, I was about to say. There's a lot of buildings like that people could not escape. Depends on what time, when it was, you know.
In 1911, many workplaces were dangerous, but few were as deadly as the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in New
I've
York.
never heard
The
of this
factory
one.
occupied the top 3 floors of a 10-story building. Inside, workers made shirtwaists.
Wait, is this the elevator
Shirtwaists were
one?
a type of blouse popular with women office workers in the late 19th century and early 20th centuries.
Demand for shirtwaists was high, so factories pushed workers hard to keep up. The work was exhausting, but workers had little power to speak up. They worked 9 hours a day on weekdays
Dang.
and 7 hours on Saturdays. But the long hours weren't the worst part. Safety was. Factory owners wanted to stop workers from taking breaks outside. They also wanted to prevent theft and discourage union activity. So during work hours, they locked
Oh yeah,
almost
this was
all the factory
anti-union
doors.
time.
It was a large loft in which the doors had been locked from the outside.
Those locked doors created a serious risk. If something went wrong, workers couldn't escape. And on March 25th, 1911, the disaster finally happened. Around 4:40 p.m. that day, one of the factory workers smoked a cigarette. Then they tossed it into a bin. This was a factory that made clothes, so the bin was full of fabric scraps. The material caught fire in seconds. Hundreds of workers rushed for the exits, but most of the doors were locked.
Onlookers out for a weekend stroll in nearby Washington Square Park watched in horror.
Well, yeah, it's 1911. Of course, you can cheap out and not barely pay any of the women or black people there. Cheap labor.
Workers managed to escape, but for most, help arrived too late. By the end, more than 100 workers didn't make it. The city was left grieving.
Okay, so this is where it says 150 perished in the factory fire. Women and girls trapped in 10-story building.
Didn't make it. The city was left grieving.
This fire really shook people up. You know, the city was so guilt-stricken that maybe we were somehow responsible.
The families blamed 2 people.
Factory owner Max Blank, who along with his partner Isaac Harris, was accused of locking the factory door.
Both men were taken to court, but a jury acquitted them. The public was outraged.
Yeah.
Labor groups protested in the streets.
Yeah, they changed the
Thousands
door
joined
shut.
funeral
Oh,
marches.
evil.
People demanded better safety for workers, and they kept pushing until they got it. Between 1913 and 1914, New York passed nearly 60 new safety laws. Buildings were required to have clear exits. Fire escapes had to be strong and usable. Doors could no longer be locked during work hours. Factories had to be inspected regularly, and fire drills became mandatory. More than a century later, those laws are still being enforced. They shape modern workplace safety standards today. Worker safety is
Thank
now
you so
treated
much for the
as essential,
headshots.
but it took a tragedy to make that happen.
That's
Every
like a
safety
game.
warning, every seal on a bottle, every alert on your phone. They exist
60,
because
yeah.
someone paid the ultimate price. So the next time you think a rule is pointless, remember, it probably isn't. Visual Venture.
Beautiful.
So we talked about laws created by one incident, but there is a whole nother world of bans out there. I made a nearly 2-hour deep dive into movies, documentaries.
Yeah, this was honestly great though. Showed some really informative stuff, and now is protecting a lot of people. I think that's wonderful. I hope everybody enjoyed the video as much as I did. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll see each other next time. Bye-bye.